Welcome to Every Horror Movie on Netflix, the show where we watch, discuss, review, and sometimes argue about every horror movie on Netflix. Again, I'm Chris.
I'm Patrick Portobello Dunn.
I'm Elizabeth.
I'm Steven. Portobello, really? I like that better than flying.
Yeah.
It's
got a ring to it.
It's
alliterative.
I'm just on a quest to find the perfect, fucking middle nickname. And it's going to happen. I'm only, 2 nicknames into this quest, but it's going to happen.
Well, we've got, 235 more horror movies on Netflix to go, so you'll get there. I'm confident.
Yeah.
Just keep cycling them, see what sticks. Check Twitter, see if we have any...
If we have any votes for a name.
Well, happy almost December, everybody. It's apparently close enough that where I live, they're putting up the city Christmas tree down in the square. They got some horses and carriages clomping and clacking by the window. So if you hear anything weird, like Christmas music, carriages clicking and clomping, you'll know why.
And for future listeners, the year is 1894.
Yes. I wish it were.
It did feel as if I'd traveled back in time driving up here today and seeing the horse-drawn carriage. Is that a normal thing for Monroe? Do they do this every year?
Yes. In fact, the horse-drawn carriage actually goes by every Thursday. They have Thursday nights, and they have free carriage rides.
Free?
Yeah.
You done it?
I haven't done it.
Why?
You done it?
I don't know. I just have better things to do than look at a horse's ass.
I just felt like I fucking lost years of my life trying to get here tonight, driving around looking for fucking parking.
Yeah.
You should have rid a carriage.
Well,
I should have. I
felt
should have
like
ridden my carriage down here to Chris's house.
I felt like I lost years of my life watching this fucking movie. What did we watch this week, guys?
Well, we watched American Poltergeist 2. Some of you might remember 2 weeks ago we watched American Poltergeist, and it was universally panned.
We were just so stoked about it, we were like, let's watch the sequel.
Luckily, we had a nice break with the astronaut's wife.
Yeah, we don't really have a choice.
Little vacation.
Was that nice?
We watched American Poltergeist 2. This is a movie that actually was made before American Poltergeist. Am I right?
Yeah.
I think you're right.
2013 or something.
And when it was released, it went through several film titles before settling on American Poltergeist 2.
Well, yeah, it got made and then shelved. It was first...
You Will Love Me.
You Will Love Me, that's right. And then it was The Poltergeist of Borley Forest. And then probably around that time, American Poltergeist 1 came out. And then somewhere in the interim, it got renamed American Poltergeist 2 and released as a sequel because the American Poltergeist brand was so strong and so popular with American Poltergeist 1. They were like, fuck, we really need to capitalize on this. No, actually, really, does anyone have an answer to this question? Why is there an American Poltergeist 2? Why did they feel that was a selling point for this movie?
They were marketing it on the popularity of the actual Poltergeist film franchise.
That makes sense because there was that remake with wasn't Sam Rockwell in that around the same time?
I think it was 2015.
It must be. That's why the name is in there. Because, again, spoiler alert, there is no poltergeist in this movie. It is a ghost. They haven't figured that out in this franchise. Yeah. Third time's the charm.
This movie has nothing to do with the other Poltergeist movie.
Nope.
The other American Poltergeist movie, that is.
Or with
it's the
other
asylum model.
movie.
It's like slap a title on a piece of shit that's going to grab people based on some other successful movie that has just come out or is about to come out, and they'll be interested. Somehow Netflix also bought into that.
But I mean, the funny thing is that Poltergeist isn't even a successful enough brand on its own necessarily. You know, I mean, Poltergeist, of course, in and of itself, like the original Poltergeist is a legendary horror movie, but it's just so bizarre that I guess the only potentially logical answer we can come up with for them trying to market this whole franchise is that, well, Poltergeist was a famous movie 30 years ago.
And like you said, it says American, so people are going to see it and think quality.
Well, again,
Yeah.
we just mentioned that there was a remake of Poltergeist that came out around this time, so I think
Which
they were
did poorly.
tying in on that. I think this probably came out when that was announced. It was expected to be a hit, and they were like, "Oh, we can latch onto that. We can grab onto those coattails."
When American Poltergeist 1 or 2 came out.
When the Poltergeist
Whichever
movie
one came out first.
with Sam Rockwell.
If
That's
someone
a reboot, though. The question is, why didn't they still think it was a selling point?
Dude, who knows? It's Shark Attack 3. Like, you throw a buzzword into a movie title, and some old people / dumb people will get it from the movie theater.
And
or
poltergeist
from the
is
video
a
store.
cool buzzword, too. I mean, it's such a unique word tied to a famous franchise. I don't know.
Maybe they were just trying
Well,
to...
no, but here's the question. Okay, so if you're selling it on the basis of the Poltergeist connection to the famous
Sure.
Poltergeist franchise, then why
It's
not
my favorite
leave...
William Friedkin movie, The Poltergeist Connection.
Yeah. Then why not leave the title The Poltergeist of Borley Wood? We just said that was the title. Why connect it to this other shitty movie?
Because
They got
were,
sued.
They were trying...
No, they did.
Did they?
By Borley
they?
Wood?
Yeah, there was like a situation where they couldn't use that title.
By Borley Wood.
No, I don't know. But no, there was a situation where that title they couldn't use and they had to change it.
Yeah, okay. All right, but so I'm just going to register. We don't have to talk about this any further, but I'm just still fascinated by the fact that, okay, so sure, use the word poltergeist as a selling point for your movie because of that famous franchise, but why connect it to American Poltergeist? Why make it a sequel to a completely unrelated movie? It's just mind-boggling.
Maybe
to
they
me.
were just trying to borrow the 1,200 Facebook followers of the first movie.
Shouts out Andrew Wazowski.
Look, I mean, the first movie somehow got on Netflix. It is the same studio that produced this. They're doing something right because it came to
Because
our
they keep
desk.
getting movies on Netflix.
And you know what? None of us have a movie on Netflix, so let's just remember that.
Listeners, if you know anything, we've said this before, if you know anything about Netflix's business model,
Please.
how filmmakers make money from having films on Netflix, how much they get paid, how do you get a film on Netflix, please tell us.
I feel like those are questions we should be answering for the audience.
Yeah, like we could probably find those out by Googling.
I just wonder if, like, by 4 different people watching American Poltergeist 2, does that mean it's going to be on Netflix for, like, 6 more years?
We're giving it a bump that is totally
There's going to be
unnecessary.
American Poltergeist 3,
They're
and
like,
it's going to be
"Oh,
our fault.
fans,
It's got
yeah.
the AMERICAN bump.
It's going to be
Yeah.
American Poltergeist Fear Strikes Again.
I can't wait.
Well,
So-
let's get into the actual movie, I think.
Yeah.
We've talked enough about the title.
Who feels qualified
Me,
to
me.
explain
I've
the
been
plot?
waiting to do
okay,
it.
Elizabeth.
Please.
Total recall, Elizabeth.
Okay. Oh,
There's your nickname. You've got a nickname. Elizabeth Total Recall Pierce.
okay. Well, basically, this movie is centered around a teen girl
Named Paige.
named Paige.
I remember that this time.
Good job. You're good with names.
No, you're better.
Oh, thanks, Chris.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow, that was cute.
That was really sweet.
Jesus.
So she is at a party in the woods with her friends who are drinking and making out. She hates it. She wants to go home. And
Right.
and someone says to her, "Hey, I think these 2 people are going to go home soon, so you should just catch a ride with them." She goes looking for them, stumbles into the woods, and sees a rope, a noose, hanging from a tree. She touches it. And for the rest of the movie, she is haunted by the ghost of the person who was hung in this noose.
Now, wasn't there like a skeleton hand as well that reached out and touched her?
Yeah.
in
Well,
that sequence?
yeah. I think when she first touches the noose, there's a short ghost sequence of like a skeleton hand.
One of the many inconsistent visual representations of whatever the fuck this thing is.
It feels like this would be more at home as a sequel to Haunting at Silver Falls than
Yeah.
Agree,
Poltergeist.
agree.
Yeah.
So much crossover there.
Totally.
Very similar. And so for the rest of the movie, she is haunted by this thing, and she and her brother and friends set off to quell the ghost.
It's basically the same kind of plot points as Haunting at Silver Falls. You have
Yeah.
kind of, antagonistic parents who don't want anything to do with what's
Right.
going on with her. You got the friends, you got the solving the mystery from 50 years ago. Mm-hmm. That's all there is.
Beat for beat, it's almost identical. One thing that we have in the mix here that I don't think was in that film in the same way is an interesting, kind of creepy love interest. So this girl has this
God.
beautiful man named Cooper who is sort of... Is he stalking her? Isn't he? He works with her brother, but he keeps showing up at the cafe that she works at. And how did he find out she works there? Well, because he saw a picture of her in his brother's office, and then his brother told him that he works at the cafe. Or
What
she
does he
works at the
say to
cafe.
her? You need to learn the difference between being stalked and being wooed, something like that.
Sexy.
No. It's the difference between being stalked and being wooed.
I know.
Yeah.
I had a
Sexy.
hard
Oh,
time.
sexy,
I had a
yeah.
hard time picking up the line because Patrick, you mentioned this. You texted me after you'd seen the film. This has the worst sound design of any movie
Oh
I think
my
I've
God.
ever seen in my
Oh,
life.
Christ.
I had a really hard time just I just figuring out what anybody was saying at any point.
And I mean, this is a good point to note. I don't necessarily think any of us, well, actually, Chris is, and probably Steve is to a degree, but none of us are necessarily experts in sound design. But this is something where even like, I mean, basically anyone could watch this movie and just note that the sound is shitty. Like, I mean, you know, you can be a sound editor and kind of critique the nuances of sound editing and sound design. But this is just a movie where the sound sounds terrible. It sounds like it was recorded with a fucking, I don't know, with a computer or something, and it'll vacillate in the same scene. Like one character's dialogue sounds like it was recorded through a MacBook, and then the other sounds like it was recorded more or less professionally. It just calls attention to itself in a way I've never seen in a, you know, quote unquote, like feature release.
I was actually, a lot of the entertainment value for me in this movie was actually trying to solve my own mystery while Paige is trying to solve her mystery about what's up with this audio and how are they miking these actors.
I had one scene in particular I was like, I'm almost positive, because I've recorded stuff on my iPhone for projects before. There was one scene in particular I was like, I'm pretty sure that like this actor is mic'd and the other one just has like an iPhone in their pocket.
Yeah.
Or like mics sound like they're under tables, kind of. They sound kind of muffled. Now, I mean, we're not, you know, in the best position to throw stones about audio quality. You know, this isn't, you know, NPR level production.
Yeah, right now we have like
podcast has better audio quality in this fucking movie.
We don't have a horror movie on Netflix, so
that's true. But my theory to explain most of it, it sounds like there was some really aggressive noise reduction done on everything. So it sounds like they were either in environments that had like lots of background noise or hums or generators run, like when they're in the forest, they got lights, they probably have generators. Ambient noise that they get rid of, because there's almost no noise, there's no hiss in the movie. It's all gone, but then the voices are so processed down that they sound very tinny and like they're coming over phones or shitty speakers.
I don't know anything about sound design, but if you've ever tried to like pick up just two voices in an area that's not prepared for that, there's so much background noise. And I feel like that's exactly what they did. They just did exactly that, and then we're like, fuck, it's loud as hell. There's like a refrigerator and an air conditioning machine and all this stuff running, and so they just did that. Couldn't hear shit. Watch this movie with subtitles.
But I mean, normally in a movie, if you had a problem with the audio in the scene, you would do ADR. Like you'd go back and re-record those lines, and that doesn't seem to be a concept that
I didn't even think of that. It would have been so easy to make this a more intelligible film.
Yeah.
Did they release her?
No, but she's gonna be fine. Just a bunch of stitches. My dad and Brenda are with her. Paige is in the car. Come on.
Where are we going?
Where do you think we're going? I gotta pick somebody up along the way. Let's go.
Well, another problem with audio in this film, if we're going down that road, is the score. I know, Patrick, you've said before you don't pay much attention or it doesn't register with you. This movie... Did you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, absolutely.
I
don't usually pay much attention to the score, but in this, I was like, what the fuck?
So... For a movie where there are long stretches... Well, first of all, it's an interesting formal exercise. They tried to create a movie where the script is nothing but exposition. And I find that kind of admirable in its own way. I'm obviously kidding. It's true. If you watch this movie, almost every line is exposition. It's like people telling you... They're reading history about this case, or they're telling you what they're doing or what they're going to do. And in the background...
Or how many tours they've done.
And in the background, you have
Best
this music.
character.
The score, it might as well be the Jeopardy theme song played on a loop. There's so many scenes where there's just like a piano arpeggio that is played, pause, played again for like, no exaggeration, 5 or 6 minutes.
Interminably.
When you're already bored and you're already not feeling any sense of like atmosphere or involvement in what's going on, it drove me mad.
Yeah.
Yeah, but again, all this is just symptoms of just having no money and trying to make a movie. That's
No
a
money,
little bit
but
beyond
man,
your
have a
means.
little energy and ambition, and I don't feel like this film had that. It felt oddly like a cash-in for such a low-budget feature.
A cash-in? I don't know. Well, here's what I will say. I enjoyed this movie a hell of a lot more than American Poltergeist 1. Anyone disagree?
No.
I think I'm with you there.
No.
I think it was a much better movie, Elizabeth.
Yeah, I like this better than one.
Yeah.
I was more suspenseful.
Actually, it was. And there were, I wouldn't say I was terrified, but there were some moments I thought were eerie. And,
There were
was
a couple of
moments
eerie
where I
moments.
hid my eyes. There was also a great scene that we'll talk about later that I think made this movie worth watching.
You know, I want to get back to, because somehow we got on the audio issue from talking about Cooper. I want to talk about Cooper and the relationship between him and Paige, because that is a bizarre thing in and of itself. Like, the first time that Paige meets Cooper, she's waiting tables at this restaurant she works at, and the first thing, like, just out of the fucking patriarchy playbook, the first thing he says to her is... It's a variation on "How about a smile?" I forget what the exact line is, but the first thing he says to her is, would it kill you to smile? Something like that.
She says, "What can I get you?" And he's like, "How about a smile?"
Right.
And then the feminist script, she says, "If you want to order off menu, it costs you extra."
Right. But then the line right after that, she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm having a really bad day."
She apologizes. She
I know I'm supposed to be flattered. I just don't have the energy for it
right
now. Like,
the
come on.
whole relationship between them is so confusing, because they're constantly kind of setting up cues to make you think that Cooper is kind of a shitbag, and then she kind of comes back and it's like, well, Cooper's a good guy,
I feel like it's all played very innocently and naively. I don't think whoever made this movie had any concept that, like, Cooper is a creep.
Yeah.
Or he's a shitbag. No. Like, I think we're supposed to be kind of charmed by this unlikely romance. And if I could write a better version of this movie, I mean, I guess when we eventually get to the conclusion, this will make more sense. But, like, I wish they had played up the creepiness, and I wish that they had built it up over time. And I think it would have really made the final payoff work a lot better, at least thematically.
Well, and Cooper does so many weird things that are just sort of played off. Like, he's supposed to hang out with Paige, and he shows up at her house for no ostensible reason, and then just kind of plays that off. And then that's kind of presented to us as like, oh, poor Cooper getting shut out of her house.
Yeah, because in the meantime, I mean, we haven't even really explained the core of the drama here. But
Not
basically, same shit as Haunting at Silver Falls. If you haven't listened to our episode about that, she's just a girl in a house, mostly by herself because her parents went off on vacation, and there's just vaguely spooky ghost shit happening where she sees shadows in the corner of her bedroom. There's strange writings on the mirror when she gets out of the shower. Doors are opening.
Flowers are delivered.
Flowers are delivered in a creepy bouquet. So stuff like that, and you're like, oh, is there a ghost doing these things? And we know there's a ghost doing these things, but then they kind of throw in this Cooper character who's like, oh, well, maybe it's just Cooper. But we already know, because we've already seen the ghost hands and all this shit, that's probably not Cooper.
Well, so after she goes to this party, she gets back home, parents are pissed. They're supposed to go on vacation and leave her alone, so they decide, somewhat reluctantly, to let her brother and is it his wife?
Yeah, it's his wife.
Okay.
Yeah. Her brother, who is an Iraq war vet, and we are reminded of this many times.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious.
Does not look like an Iraq war vet at all.
5'5",
He looks
106 pounds and has hair down to his shoulders.
He's the definition of a draft dodger.
Yeah, he literally...
And he's now like a video editor, or what is his business?
He runs servers. He maintains servers for people. Like, he has a freelance IT company run out of his basement.
But he also knows a lot about video editing.
He does, and the parents have security cameras set up, so they're like, well, we can keep an eye on what's going on at the house. And of course, things go awry, but they also use the security footage to figure out what happens when this strange bouquet is delivered. Was it Cooper? Or was it the ghost? And we see very early on that, like, it's delivered by, like, an apparition.
Yeah. But that mystery perseveres throughout this movie. Like,
it does.
There was nothing that I was wondering through this movie other than where they put the microphones.
I wanted to know what the ghost's motivation was and whether or not Cooper was a creep. And it takes us so long to get there. We never get an answer on Cooper.
Well, Cooper's a creep from square one.
I would like to comment. I did not get any creepy vibe from Cooper.
No.
I don't think he was creepy at all.
Even the smile. How about a smile?
I think this movie is playing it as this is a cute young romance.
It's a cute romance. He saw her picture. He works with her brother. He thought she was cute. He decided to go to her restaurant. He shows up to her door to pick her up for the date. He rings the doorbell. It's not like he breaks in.
But he wasn't supposed to. They were supposed to meet at a coffee shop.
No, they weren't. They hadn't clarified it yet. They decided to meet at noon, and he came to pick her up.
That's weird.
Is Cooper on trial right now?
Okay, so let's just remember. I mean, I think that... Okay. Yes, I did not think that Cooper was creepy. I think that there's a lot of men in this podcast who think that they know about women.
Well, listen, but before I got into feminist Twitter, I might not have thought there was anything wrong with opening up a conversation with a woman with, like, well, no, I would have. I mean, How about a smile? You should smile. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, but that's just bad script writing.
What I'm saying is, yes, I don't think we are supposed to. Yes, he is creepy to us as enlightened, as woke viewers, but in the context of the film, I don't feel like the director is trying to get us to like really get a creep vibe from him. Like, yeah, he says a lot of things that would be totally inappropriate to say to a woman in real life, but there's never any indication that Paige is like totally put off or like traumatized by anything that he does to her.
No, which I guess is the problem.
Yeah, it is a problem with the movie, but I don't think that like in the context of the film, Cooper's a creep. That's the question I'm trying to answer here, right?
Which is the problem.
It is a problem. I wish that they had played up that creepiness because it would have made for better drama.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot in this movie that doesn't matter. It's all
like most of
all
it?
Filler, no killer. I'll tell you that.
Well, there
okay?
is a killer.
Well,
filler,
there's
no
one
killer.
killer, and there's all filler, one killer. Yes. But, the whole Cooper storyline doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. Even this...
It's a MacGuffin.
It's completely useless. And even this video, one of the things that pissed me off, what we were just talking about, they have security footage of the flower delivery.
Yeah.
There's no less than 4 scenes in the movie of
people reacting to the video.
Gathered around a computer screen, which we cannot see, and just alternatively gasping, screaming, saying, "I'm going to be sick," and running out of the room.
They were trying,
At one point, staring directly into the lens. The characters are all staring directly into the lens, like at us, the audience, as they watch the video. And I was like, I almost thought there was like some interesting meta thing going on there for a minute.
The flowers.
Yeah, like it's the audience's fault.
Oh, can you imagine?
We are the American poltergeist, guys.
Can you imagine if this movie just took like a big meta shift like halfway through, where they're like the horror is that they're actually in a movie?
That would be
we're
amazing.
watching.
That would be
like
sweet.
Cabin in the Woods style.
Yeah. That'd be amazing.
Who are those people? What?
Dude, maybe an American poltergeist. Fear strikes again.
Jesus Christ. You are pushing that
Well,
too hard.
fear would have to strike once for it to strike.
But no, I mean, basically, this Paige girl is kind of a tough broad, though, because she kind of, she's not like cowering in her bed. She says things to the ghost like, "Hey, get away from me. Stop scaring my family."
Well, and she stands up to her parents too. Her parents are just like inexplicably asshole-ish to her. Like,
horrible.
I don't understand. Like, she went out to a party like normal girls do, like, and came home late. What's the big deal?
That sounds like my parents.
Yeah, my parents were just
they
like
behaved
that.
exactly the way my parents
Yeah.
would have.
Yeah, I mean, I believe that there's parents out there like that, but it's hilarious, like to the point. So they leave the brother in charge to watch her, and then when something ghostly happens, in spite of him being on duty to watch her, the dad is like, "Why did I think you could defend our country when you can't even defend your own sister?"
Yeah, that
Yes.
was my favorite line.
Which, I want to step back for just a second to the brother. And, because it did strike me how his physical type seemed to play against, you mentioned like how tall he is and his weight and his hair and all those things. I was like, yeah, that's ludicrous. But also at the same time, so I mean, okay, maybe you could have been in the army and sort of look like this guy does. But also the performance is just not there. Like, the performance does not suggest anything like a guy who's been to Afghanistan or been to Iraq and seen
I
some
like
shit.
the performance. I like the performance.
Oh, really?
I like the performance, but it did not fit the character they were trying to build.
Oh, okay, yeah, I agree with that.
But do we
I
know,
agree with
was
that.
he on the front lines? Was he in combat, or was
I
he like
assume-
an intelligence
all right,
guy?
this is my
We don't know
backstory.
anything
Oh,
about
maybe he
this.
was running servers in Iraq.
Yes, that's absolutely.
Probably.
I'm sure he was.
This is the backstory. This is my fan fiction. He was running
Yeah,
servers because
yeah.
obviously a guy like that who knows that
This
much
is my
shit.
fan fiction.
This
Like-
is the only American Poltergeist 2 fan fiction right here.
When you know that much shit, you get put in like the server room and you watch the video footage and you like send the drones out and shit. He was doing IT like on the base in Iraq. He wasn't like an infantry guy.
Look,
okay.
but here is how do you, if you do nothing else, how do you indicate that someone is or has been in the military?
They wear the boots.
Yeah.
Because in real life, you see a guy wearing those boots and he was in the military and they keep the boots and they wear the boots.
And they fucking have they don't have hair down to their shoulders. I mean, that
Yeah.
you know what? Who knows?
What,
Iraq's been a long ass war. How old is that guy? He could be 30.
when was he in Iraq? When's Iraq?
He could have been in Iraq. He could have enlisted when he was 18.
Yeah.
done 2 tours. Which how many years is that? I don't know how many years people go on
8
tour.
years. Tours? No,
Yeah,
9 months.
I don't know. Okay, so yeah, he could have been in for like, I don't know, 4 years. I don't know. And then he comes back and he's like, yeah, Iraq wasn't really for me.
Yeah, but this movie was made so long ago. It was
He
like
grows his
fucking-
hair down.
Yeah, all right.
I mean, who gives a fuck? Like
It really doesn't
these
matter,
characters
but-
are all just completely two-dimensional. The movie, as much time as it spends following them, we really don't learn much about their inner lives.
I mean, the performances are strictly like community theater shit.
I think he was the best in the movie, honestly, but it's still not great.
I think his wife was the best.
Okay, well, anyway, so where do we go from there? She's being haunted by a ghost. She gets into, going to the library and talking to people associated with this disappearance that happened in the,
It's like
50s,
3/4 of the way
60s?
through the movie before
Yeah,
you
it is.
understand.
Which also-
That's when I started
who the
taking
ghost
notes,
is.
actually. I don't have anything from before the
Yeah, me
last,
too.
40 minutes of this movie.
Here's what I'd like to say. There is nothing more terrifying as a woman than opening your eyes while laying in bed and seeing a man in your bedroom. And this movie features that many times.
Yeah.
You
Go-
were watching it between your fingers. I just remembered that you were freaking out a little bit.
It's scary, and regardless of how well they do it, I know that you guys don't think it was scary, but it's still to actually put something that looks like a human man in a room in a movie is scary.
I agree.
I mean, I did think certain things were scary. I don't think just putting a man in a room is scary, but I liked a few moments. There were a few things where I was actually like, oh, that's actually sort of creepy. That was sort of the high point of this movie for me. Like when the ghost, poltergeist, whatever the fuck, is like hovering over the bed at a 45-degree angle in silhouette. That was pretty creepy. I was like, okay, that's cool. That's good.
There were a few fleeting moments that I actually thought like this could in a better made film like this could actually be creepy. But then we get into like bad special effects immediately after that happens, where the ghost is just sort of like hopping around over the bed as like a
Bad special
CGI
effects.
apparition.
The script. I thought the script was written around like After Effects tutorials.
Yeah.
Because all the spooky stuff is done with these like really kind of cheesy visual effects that were 100% done in post production. Like
It all seems very piecemeal. Like I said before, we talked about the skeleton hand reaching down from the tree, and sort of the ghost or ghosts that you see multiple times just appear differently every time. Like at one point, sort of this like thin skeleton hand reaches over the bed towards her, and sometimes it's like a dark silhouette. Sometimes it's a very human looking figure, and it's very
sometimes it's a straight up
confusing.
dude wearing his flannel
And talking.
Yeah,
and talking. Yeah.
It's very confusing what the fuck is going on.
Yeah, it's like it throws a whole bunch of shit at you like an Insidious movie would. Only it's all like a really shitty spectrum of things.
But one interesting thing about the ghosts in this movie too is that they can inflict damage, which is unusual because usually it's all in a dream or
inflict damage. He puts a girl into a catatonic state of fear.
Do you remember those?
As seen in The Mummy, Ardith Bay does the same thing.
Okay, fine. That's true. And there's a scene also where the whole family is in the room and he almost strangles a girl and sends pictures crashing off the wall and slices a woman in the face.
Yeah, and that's weird because that's late in the movie, and so it's almost as if he's at the height of his power, right? But like there's no reason to think that he would get more powerful as the events of the movie played out.
I mean, we're giving this all too much credit. They didn't think about it half as much as we are right now.
Also, that was so funny. I thought you were going to be like, that's interesting. That's late in the movie, and I'm not sure why you would bring that up right now.
We have to save that for the spoiler room.
Well, speaking of that, we're going to go to the spoiler room in a minute, but is there anything else that people liked or thought worked in this movie?
Something I thought was interesting is I feel like there may have been. I'd like to know the political leanings of the director because this movie fires shots at Obamacare, libraries, and journalists. Very.
But the journalist,
Fox News.
Yeah, it's really funny because that's another thing that happens super late in the movie. She's investigating. She's asking all the neighbors about if they know why she's being haunted, etc. She talks to this old lady for an interminable amount of time.
Oh my god! It was 10 minutes of her
just her in the garden talking, and then she's like, "Yeah, it was a simpler time back then." And then something else. She's like, "Yeah, well, I found this newspaper clipping is like journalists back then." I don't know.
Much integrity.
They didn't have much integrity. Of course, it's the same today.
Fox News. Fox News is like a line. Like, just those two words are a line in this movie.
Yeah. The script is probably like, old lady. Of course, it's not. It's the same today. ... Paige narrows her eyes. Old lady. Fox News! ! That's amazing.
I mean, we all hate Fox News. It should be made clear, but like, still funny.
Funny stuff. It was just so out of place because it didn't seem like a movie that would do that.
Yeah,
you know, because it kind of seems like one of those like timeless sort of ghost stories.
Yeah.
Timeless, really. Well, I can pinpoint this to a very specific time and place. I know what you mean.
What I mean by that is it's following those same beats, the same tropes that we've seen time and time again.
This is a topical ghost story.
Yeah. All right,
let's review it. Do we need to?
We always. It's our
tradition.
Duty. It's our duty.
I'm in suspense, actually. I'm curious what Elizabeth's rating is because the man in the room scared her, and I'm wondering what she's going to suggest.
Well, the man in the room scared me. I reject the notion that you have to be a woman to be scared by the man in the room. I know what you're saying, but I thought the man in the room. If I woke up and there was a man in my room, I'd be terrified.
What if there's a woman in your room?
I'd say, come on in.
I'm terrified.
She's already in, though.
I'd say, come lay down.
Wow.
I'm terrified by the 3 men in this room constantly.
All right, well, Elizabeth, view it, cue it, or screw it.
Screw it. Sorry, guys. This movie sucked ass. It was better than American Poltergeist 1. If you, for some reason in your head, are like, I need to watch an American Poltergeist movie, should I watch 1 or 2? Watch 2. But, you know, then there's no reason to do either.
Then kill yourself.
I was going to say that, but you know what? It's not appropriate.
Patrick, what do you think?
Screw it. This might be my most emphatic screw it yet. This movie's a piase of shit.
What was the penultimate most emphatic screw it that we had? There was a big one recently.
Right? I
you
don't
were
know.
Very passionate about.
I don't know. I wish I remembered. I have terrible memory. If you remembered for me, I could maybe
probably American
defend the
Poltergeist
choice.
1.
But I mean, the other thing about this movie is it's like an hour and 45 minutes or something.
It's
and
long.
I'm usually not too bad with like an hour and a half sit, even on a shitty movie. But this, it was like, I don't know. I was like, God damn it, when is this shit going to be over? And I checked the time, and it was like an hour and 10 or an hour and 15. There was still over a half hour to go.
Wow, you waited that long to check the time. I think the first time I checked the time in this movie,
I have a longer attention span than you, Steven.
Well, when it comes to shit like this, I think I knew what I was getting into, and I think the first time I clocked it, it was like 10 minutes in. And I was like, oh, fucking hell, there's an hour and a half left.
Wow.
How is that possible?
Yeah, I mean, I usually like ease into these things, and usually by the first time I take a look at the time, it's maybe a half hour, sometimes even later. But this, I was like, oh, God, I'm just, fuck. Yeah.
So, Steve, would you view it?
No, come on. I thought you'd give me the full range of options. No, I'd screw it. It's terrible. Like, again, like so many movies we've seen, it's not like so bad it's good. It is just interminable is the word for it. It feels like it goes on forever. And as I became more aware of the score, like I mentioned earlier, it made me feel even more miserable. I
just driving a screw into your brain.
Exactly. I just felt like, I could see the sands in the hourglass falling. It was awful. Don't bother with 1 or 2.
Can I throw in one thought, actually?
Yeah, throw in a thought. You have to revise your rating.
No, I'm not going to revise my rating, but I mean, it's just another one of these weird cases where if this was like our friends who made this movie, I'd be like, cool.
I'd find new friends.
Oh, no, I wouldn't be that
I wouldn't. This would be sweet. Like, if we were all in this, it would be amazing.
Right. But, I mean, this is just sort of another interesting note on this topic that's come up a lot for us. Like, how do you get a movie on Netflix? Because this just seems very amateurish. And if our friends made it, and maybe they didn't have a ton of filmmaking experience, I'd be like, that's awesome. You made an hour and 45-minute movie, and, it's not great. Whatever, I wouldn't say that to their face, but you made a thing. That's cool. That's awesome. But this is put on Netflix, like sort of the premier sort of entertainment service that everybody watches at this point. How does it get on there? And for that reason, I'm like, fuck this. Like, this doesn't deserve a place on Netflix.
Again, yeah, that's kind of what we were saying when we did American Poltergeist 1, and that's on Netflix. Like, Netflix should have enough resources and wherewithal to be getting better movies. Like, the number of movies that we've watched so far and the number of screw-its we've been giving out, like candy on Halloween, There shouldn't be this many bad movies on Netflix.
Right. I guess my overall point is that I sometimes feel bad because I feel like we're just hating on these filmmakers. And, I'm really not hating on the filmmakers.
No.
Good for them that they made a movie and got this out there somehow or other. And even good for them that they got it on Netflix. I think maybe my problem more is just like Netflix. Like, come on. You've got like fucking not a lot of horror movies really in the grand scheme of things. 250 horror movies. And this is one of them? I think that's more where my vitriol is directed. That's all I have to say.
You know what? Netflix, I think for 2018, they're trying to put out like 80-something original films in 52 weeks, which is pretty remarkable. So maybe they're going to start using more money and financing and getting some better stuff in their catalog.
Right. I mean, really, Netflix in the big picture of things is still just kind of in the nascent stages of like figuring out where to go with this power that it's attain. So,
well, what do we know about great power?
Great responsibility.
Yeah. Chris, would you view it, cue it, or screw it?
No, I would screw it, but I would screw it with no prejudice, similar to how I felt about American Poltergeist 1. Like I said, this is a better movie, I think, than American Poltergeist 1. Props to all the people involved. I'm sure they had a ton of fun. There were a lot of crippling technical problems. If you take the technical problems away, it was just kind of mediocre. It was not a great story, but it wasn't the worst thing I've ever seen.
You know what would make us real assholes?
Make us? Does anything need to make us? I feel like we're already there.
Actor who played the brother has really done to us.
Oh,
no!
Oh, man, yeah.
And that's the only reason they put that in.
Or like maybe he's somebody's friend and he like literally came back from Iraq and they're like, hey, be in this movie.
Dude, that's another person who I want to come on the show and just wreck us.
I'll Facebook message him too.
Yeah.
Why
Which,
not?
tell us a little bit about that, Steve. Why do you mention Facebook messaging people?
Well, we recently reviewed the precursor to this film, American Poltergeist, and we kind of directly addressed the director more often than I think any of us was totally comfortable with on this show. Certainly more comfortable than he was surely with, since we trashed that movie. And we did make a plea for him to come on the show, and I figured, how was he going to know unless we actually reach out to him or tag him or something? So
you reached out to him in the most direct way possible, really?
On Facebook, and I feel like kind of a creep because I sent him a message. This is Mike Rutkowski.
Not to be confused with Andrew Wazowski.
Right. And I felt like I sent him a very diplomatic message. Yes, we shit on your movie, but we want to know more. We would love to have finished a feature film. We want to learn more about this. Listen to the show. We're all great people. We'll have fun. We're not trying to sabotage you or corner you and humiliate or exploit you in any way whatsoever. I didn't get a response yet.
I have one more question, kind of a surprise question. Did you prefer this movie to A Haunting at Silver Falls or not?
Yes, without a doubt. I think simply because most of these movies are so disposable to me that I never want to think of them again. I'm going to favor the one I just saw recently that I've put the energy into discussing with you folks.
Okay.
They're both fucking terrible. I do think this was actually made better. I mean, sound issues aside, and there's some weird directorial choices. We didn't even talk about the dinner sequence at the beginning where the camera is just like trying to make out with every person around the table as it goes around. There were some kind of effective sequences in here, I felt. Like, this felt like the work of somebody who's like really starting to figure out how to make a movie.
Or sequences that could have been effective with some more work and better talent.
Sure, and more time maybe even. Who knows what constraints they were under. So I would say, yes, I would prefer this to Haunting at Silver Falls.
Because in American Poltergeist 1, we were talking about, or at least I was talking about, how I didn't know how to save that movie. I was like, I don't know where they could take this movie to make it good. This movie's not that far off from being good.
Oh, I disagree. I hated Silver Falls, but I definitely preferred Silver Falls to this. I mean, we've talked many times about the twin ghosts in Silver Falls going, meh. Yeah. I mean, the twin ghosts were consistently more interesting to me than any of the fucking, like, quote-unquote Poltergeist and American Poltergeist 2.
A little more iconic images in Haunting at Silver Falls.
Iconic.
And Larry.
Oh, no, yeah.
Who could forget Larry?
Yeah, oh, so you're on Team Silver Falls.
Who could forget Date Night?
Date Night.
Oh my god.
Wait, what was Date Night? I already forget.
The supposedly sexy parents were like, we're going out on date night.
Right.
And that means I will not neglect my wife.
This is the bigger
Oh, that
question,
reminded me
guys.
of the thing from #horror. What's the sexy vacation? Is that what it was?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no, yeah.
Naughty.
Dirty Weekend.
Dirty Weekend. What's a
Weekend.
dirty weekend? What's a date night? We're learning so much on this podcast.
No, guys. Okay, here's the real question, though. Who is the shittier set of parents? The parents in Haunting at Silver Falls or the parents in American
Okay, well, the
Poltergeist 2?
parents in Haunting in Silver Falls were literal murder sexual abusers.
Yeah, so they're much
So
worse.
I think that's worse than being a dick.
But we
I
don't,
liked
we don't
them
know what
more,
these
though.
parents were doing when
I
they
found
were on
them more
vacation.
charming.
Yeah, you never know.
Good point.
Just food
Maybe
for thought, you know.
All right, can we-
Listeners, think on that while we go to break.
Yeah. Think
right.
about that as we trundle our way down to the spoiler room.
All right. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to the spoiler room. Stick around or go watch the movie. The choice, as always, is yours.
Welcome back, everybody. We are now in the spoiler room.
The spoiler room.
It's a little cold and kind of empty in here because there's not a lot to spoil about this movie except probably the last
And
like
damp.
2-minute reveal.
I feel clammy.
Very damp.
I feel clammy, yeah.
Very damn.
Moist.
No, but really, I mean, we kind of need to like talk about this like fucking history that comes out about these ghosts,
Do
right?
we?
Long story short,
Oh, please.
after such a long, extensive investigation of going to the library, looking through all the hard copy newspapers from 1951, going
Which is
door
a
to
thing
door,
libraries totally maintain, that you can just like rifle through
And they're not
hard
yellowed at
copies
all.
of 50s newspapers.
Well, they say
And
that.
they're in Times New Roman.
They wear the lampshade on that one. They're like, shouldn't these be on microfiche by now? And they're like, no. And they keep looking. Anyway, and then extensive door-to-door interviews of her neighbors, and then they end up in this like abandoned house that they have no rights to intrude in, and they go and they find a diary just in the corner of a
Which is
of a
why is
thing.
that shit still
all
in the house?
negligible. This is all completely negligible.
But all totally fascinating.
All that
and
matters
just
is the
how
reveal. They spent a long time. The point is,
nonsensical it
they spent a
is.
long time getting us to the information that we need. We follow them through
A
every step of the way,
long time.
and none of it is dramatically compelling whatsoever.
The long story short, there was a twin. There were two twins. One of them was a bad seed. He like killed his good twin who tried to stop him from being an asshole out in the woods. And then he came home and he started like abducting kids. And then everyone got tired of his shenanigans, so they dragged him out to the forest and they put him up in a tree, the same tree we saw at the beginning of the movie, you guys, the tree with the Spanish moss all over it. And they strung him up and they caned him till he was near dead. And then they left. And when they came back, the tree and the man were gone.
Boom.
So now she's being haunted by an evil twin.
Yeah. And so in order to get rid of this, they decide that they must go find this tree.
They go back
Again,
to the forest.
back to Borley Forest, find the tree, confront the ghost.
And even that they managed to make tedious. So, two things. Pulling a Patrick, flying
do.
done here. Patrick
Just do.
Portobello done. So, these are just lines that I like that kind of underline.
I've got a new nickname. Flying Portobello. That's my nickname.
Patrick Flying Portobello done.
Yeah.
So a couple of lines that really underscore like how fucking tedious this movie is for our listeners who hopefully will never see
Who
this.
feel
thing.
the same way about this
when
podcast.
they're in the abandoned house. What we get is a sequence that is probably conservatively 12 to 15 minutes long, where it is just Paige reading through journals, and then we see flashbacks. And after the first flashback, in which nothing happens, she goes on to read another one, and her brother says, after 5 minutes in the scene, can we speed this up and get to July blah blah blah, because we already know this. I'm like, wait, you just wasted 5 minutes of my time telling something that I know I already know, and you know I already know.
But they
and then he
had to
says
get
it again.
They had to get it to feature length.
He says it again a second time after another 3 to 5 minutes.
Doesn't she throw out an arbitrary date and it's like, how about I start with June 15th, 19th, blah, blah, blah.
Sounds good.
And they're like, yeah, okay, that sounds good.
So then when they finally get to the forest, they can't find the goddamn tree. And there's like 5 minutes.
They have a coalition of the willing that goes into the forest.
in there,
It's
One of
Ford
whom...
Explorer.
It's Paige. It's Paige's Iraq
Friend
vet
Ava.
brother.
Oh, yes.
It's Paige's friend Ava, who they've been frenemies the entire movie until shit got real serious. And then Ava's like, I'm so sorry about all the things I've done ever. I'm your best friend now.
yeah.
And Dr. Hidalgo, who we haven't got
Is
to
that his
talk
name?
about yet. Dr.
Dr.
Hidalgo.
Hidalgo.
He does
Dr.
not look
Hidalgo.
Latino whatsoever.
Is your stock now? I did like this because Dr. Hidalgo is your stock like paranormal expert character that you get in these types of movies. But what I did like about him in this movie is he's almost completely incompetent.
Yeah, and played by like a 30-year-old who doesn't look like a college professor whatsoever.
He's
a
in
terrible British
he's
accent.
A college professor with a PhD, presumably.
He's in Michael Caine cosplay.
I mean, we can like raise our doubts. We can give the Iraq veteran the benefit of the doubt, like that actor the benefit of the doubt. But Dr. Hidalgo, no. This guy doesn't have a PhD.
There's another scene where he spends... I'm just going to say 5 minutes because I'm terrible at time, but I feel like that's a safe bet, where he like explains what a ghost is pretty much to Paige. And then there's a moment where she's like, well, it's another one. She's like, I already know that. Like, can we move on to the next thing? And then cue the cyclical piano arpeggio for another 5 minutes while they get into like the details of the case and how he doesn't believe her.
Nothing productive comes of the meeting. The whole point of the scene is that nothing productive comes from the meeting, but it's so long. And then he does show up to be in the forest scene, but he's completely unproductive then.
Wait,
he has the best moment of the movie,
he has the best moment
arguably.
of the whole movie.
What is it? What does he do? I don't remember.
All right, so they're hunting. They can't find the tree. They're like, we're tired. What are we going to do?
Hold on, I got a line. I'm tired of walking around this damn skeleton looking for that freaking tree.
Exactly.
Oh, because they do find human remains. And
They find
the
human
forest,
remains.
and they're like, "Oh, we must be getting closer." And so they like do some laps around it looking for the tree.
Yeah. And he busts out his ghost finder, which is this device that looks like a carbon monoxide detector that like crackles if a ghost is near. And
like rudimentary technology, he tells us.
And
he's
even
developed.
he's like, yeah, it never really works. I don't know.
Right.
And he's like sort of scanning the area, and he looks up at the trees, and he's like, wait a second. All of a sudden, a ghost drops from the trees, picks him up, and his body explodes.
He's drawn and quartered. Like
he's drawn and quartered in there.
His four limbs are pulled apart from each other. And we rewatched this. Like, we ran this back because I wanted to see how the fuck they did this. I'm pretty sure it's just like a dummy. I think it's a dummy.
Really?
It's a super
was there
quick
actually
shot.
a dummy?
I
assumed
think
it was
it's
like
a
just
dummy.
300 level after
Wait,
effects.
I thought the ghost exploded when the brother comes at him with the scythe. And
We're talking about Dr.
That's
Hidalgo
a different thing, bro.
exploded.
Spoilers.
Dr.
We're still getting to that.
Who gives a shit? Dr. Hidalgo explodes?
Yeah.
He doesn't explode. He gets drawn and quartered. He gets pulled up in the fucking
He
tree.
basically explodes.
Oh, okay, I do remember
All
this.
four
I'm not
limbs get
crazy.
pulled apart from his body.
Yeah.
And it's sort
It
of
was
amazing.
amazing.
I was like, ah! That was the first moment in the movie where I was like, okay, this is sweet.
And I just want to know who's going to inherit his office map of pulp and paper mills in the U.S. and Canada.
That's all yours, buddy.
And his jackalope that he has on the wall
That's
of his
mine.
office.
Okay, that's Elizabeth.
So Hidalgo explodes. All the other people are like, ah, including the war vet. And they run back to the Ford Explorer, try to drive away. Car won't start. They decide to go to sleep in the car. Then Paige wakes up and the ghost is beckoning to her from the woods. And she,
Being a brave ass bitch.
young woman, gets out of the car and follows it alone. Then it leads her to the tree.
And he's like pantomiming, much like the Haunting at Silver Falls ghost.
He's like,
there's a tree.
They're wagging fingers at each other.
Yeah, and she's
listener.
like, this tree, I already know it killed you. And he's like, meh. And then Iraq vet shows up. He has a scythe because they found the scythe in like next to the skeleton tree, whatever. And he's like,
Well,
oh.
Scythe has appeared in this movie a few times, too. There's also an inexplicable opening sequence where someone is killed with a scythe.
Yeah, the scythe is the ghost's trademark
Weapon of choice.
Yeah.
in life and in death.
Yeah.
And so now the Iraq vet has it, and he plunges the scythe into the ghost's heart.
Chest.
And what happens? Steve, this excited you.
He just explodes.
He
But
sets
before
on fire.
that, like
He, like, kind of, his chest, like, sort of lights on fire,
Yeah.
and then... And it's
really
how do you kill a ghost with a fucking scythe? What?
I don't know.
It's
Well,
a-
scythe is
okay,
probably
it's
easier.
the object. It's an object that's tied to him that they found in the forest, and he's at the enchanted tree where they established that his powers are weakest at the site where he was killed.
Sure, there's that, and also there's an epic showdown between Paige and the ghost where she calls him out for being a creep. I feel like if I was going to rewrite this movie, given what we have, the real estate that we have to deal with, I would make Cooper a total creep. He dies in a car crash. We missed that. So we never get any resolution about what his motives were, whether or not he was a creep or if he was being sort of inappropriate in his pursuit of Paige. I like this scene would have worked so much better if like she had been done wrong by a boy that she fell for and he turned out to be a total like jagbag creep. And then she has the chance to be like, well, this fucking ghost is still haunting me. I'm gonna tell him everything I wanted to say to Cooper, and I'm gonna kill a ghost. And that like that would be like super empowering, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like that might have,
because the ghost is like an admirer of Paige.
right, and it's unclear, aside from the fact that she, touched his skeleton hand or whatever in the tree, like why he's following her of all people. That's not really developed, but like
Probably the first time he'd been touched by a woman in a while.
I'm sure, yeah. Wow, a lot of really inappropriate things I could say right now. But yeah, like better movie. She has that final confrontation, saying the things she wanted to say to Cooper because he's a total creepo, and she gets to kill a ghost in the meantime, and that would be like an interesting journey. Like I would want to know, I'd want to see a sequel to that. Like where does this woman come out on the other side of this struggle? Not what happens. It's all totally inconsequential. The ghost blows up. It takes like 3 seconds, terrible special effects, and then we're back to normality.
No, but there's still a final last minute twist.
Oh, yes.
Oh my God. I'm so sorry.
Which
You're
will
right.
Because
fucking
that is
chill
not
you.
where this all ends.
Because, and you know what? As he's getting scythed to death, he's like, yeah, making a mistake, before he gets blown up on fire. And then
why the fuck? I mean, I'm sorry, we're going to get to the spoiler in a second, but like, why was he still continuing to like intimidate her? If
I don't think he was. We were intimidated by him because we've seen him do all kinds of creepy, scary shit, and he looks creepy. He looks like Dylan Roof. I don't know.
Yeah, he does.
Totally.
Just like Dylan Roof.
He's got the bowl cut.
I
He's wearing,
don't
like,
agree
the
with that, but I think
Carhartt.
it's funny.
And
Well, Chris, say the spoiler because I have something to say about it.
okay, what do you have to say?
No, you have to say it first.
I wish somebody could have just said the spoiler to me instead of me having to watch this entire
Well,
movie.
the spoiler is they get back to the house. They're having their celebratory "we just killed a ghost" beers or whatever, and then Paige goes up to her room and she's looking through her notes again, and she's like, she realizes that they actually killed the ghost of the good twin that was checking the bad twin, and now the bad twin is still being a ghost, and he's unrestrained.
Yep.
And the cool thing about this is they do pretty clearly establish at several points in the movie that there are two ghosts, and you have all the information you need to like put this together, but I didn't put it together and Paige didn't put it together.
We'll break that down in a moment because I feel like they give us a nice montage where they're like, see, all along there have been two ghosts.
It's
But
like
while I was
Saw.
watching it, I was like, I don't think so.
No, I remember that. 'cause
Really? Okay. Well, more credit to them because that's a pretty difficult thing to pull off.
Yeah.
Well, my complaint about all this is that so these ghosts can speak. They have said things throughout the movie. They've said, for example, we realize in retrospect that we don't know which ghost was talking, but they've said things like, you will love me, or, no, or you're making a mistake, or whatever. And my biggest complaint is if they have the power to speak, literally if the good ghost had said either twin or brother, anyone could have figured out.
I'm not Joe. I'm not Roy.
So basically, the good ghost was just a huge dipshit.
Well, yeah, the good ghost, he was saying like no, and he was trying to get Paige to realize that the bad ghost was still there and behind her. All he needed to say was one word.
Well, it's probably fucking hard to be a ghost. Like, you've seen Patrick Swayze's Ghost.
Oh my God, that didn't look that hard.
No, but like, there's the scene where he's like, all right, kick the can, bro.
Yeah.
And it takes some effort to kick the can. It probably takes effort when you're a ghost to like talk so that people can hear you.
Yeah.
All this stuff takes effort, so.
Probably.
Sure, I don't know what energy levels they have or like what they can do, what they can say,
The
can't
moon
say.
probably has a lot to do with it.
Probably. Why not?
Well, and that's the movie.
And that's the movie. Couple other things I liked, because this movie was probably made after or before.
It was definitely made before American Poltergeist.
Because this movie was made before the first American...
Who
Well,
cares?
it's funny because there were some things where like I thought I saw callbacks to the first American Poltergeist. but absolutely not. It was just like
You're way off.
it was just like seeing Jesus in your toast, kind of like, you know, there's a pattern, but like because there's a
And
part where
Jesus being very relevant to
they talk about
some of these
grandmothers.
callbacks.
Yeah, they talk about grandmothers down in the basement. There's a church kid who's like, I gotta go work at the church in the morning. Sorry, guys. Someone complains. The girl complains they go in the library, and she's like, it's a smelly library. They talk about how musty and smelly the library smells.
They really hate that library.
Yeah.
And the librarian. Like,
Well, the librarian is a bitch, to be fair.
well, I mean, what would you do if you had these like shithead kids coming in? Who
Well,
didn't
but she's unnecessarily a bitch
I
in that
guess so.
scene.
Okay.
She's over the top.
It's very easy to cast a bitchy librarian. That's a good default character.
Yeah.
That was an extreme one, though.
It would be a great scene would be if they're in there
I
looking
thought it
at
was-
the newspapers and they touch the picture in the newspaper of the ghost when he was alive, and there's like a and then the library is like shh, the librarian.
I mean, we are running on empty right now, but like, did anybody think that was Amy Sedaris when you first saw the librarian?
No.
No.
I don't know what Amy Sedaris looks like.
God
Me
damn it.
neither.
Okay. Well, anyway, I googled Amy Sedaris immediately and thought like, oh man, she's really slumming it.
I mean, I guess I'm going to briefly bring this full circle by just referencing why I mentioned Portobello in the fucking intro in the first place. It's my favorite line of the whole movie when Cooper is first, like, asking Paige for recommendations of what the best thing is to eat at the restaurant. He's, like, thinking about getting either the caprese wrap or the
He says
Portobello
caprese.
sandwich. Caprese, yeah.
Which drives me crazy when people say that.
Yeah. And she says, the caprese is good, but the Portobello is awesome. Which I just thought
Like
was so...
I've been working here
Ooh,
a
that's-
whole year, and I still eat it.
Yeah. I know all about the Portobello.
I mean, I get it for free, but like, given the choices, it's the best.
Oh, and there's another line where someone says, I'm a big Portobello fan. I wrote that down, too. I forget where that
Is that a
comes up.
sexual metaphor? I have to wonder.
I don't know.
So, does anyone have any closing thoughts?
Lessons learned? Anything?
I think the lesson learned is the same lesson you learn from hunting at Silver Falls. If you're in the woods and you see some creepy shit,
Don't touch it.
don't fucking touch it, man.
Don't fuck around with ghost twins.
Yeah.
Like, one ghost is bad enough, but twins?
Or you know what?
Just get the fuck out.
If there's twins, one of them at least is probably benevolent. Because the
Yeah,
ghosts in Silver
there you
Falls
go.
were benevolent in the end. They just wanted you their rings and
There
shit.
you go.
Anyway. So what are we watching next week? You want me to tell
I
ya?
forgot.
We're-
What is it called again?
we're watching-
my memory is
we're watching-
lacking these days.
What I wish I was after watching American Poltergeist 2, Amnesiac.
Oh, now I
Amnesiac.
remember.
Oh.
Great. So join us then. We'll be talking about that. In the meantime, catch us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, on our website, www.everyhorrormovieonnetflix.com. Leave us a message. Leave us a review. Troll us a little. We'll troll you back. And until then, for Every Horror Movie on Netflix, I'm Chris.
I'm Patrick Flying Portobello Dunn.
I'm Elizabeth.
I'm Steven.
See you next week.